We are here today to talk a little bit about formative assessment and online classes, right? I'm going to be talking for about 30 to 40 minutes, more or less, maybe 40. And later on, I'll open for questions, okay? And of course, in some moments, I'm going to ask you to interact through the chat. So feel free to collaborate, okay? Well, formative assessment. Some of the things we're going to take a look at during this webinar is we're going to think together about the panorama of the English language teaching in our country during this pandemic, right? We are going to take a very quick look at types of assessments. Then we'll see some concepts of formative assessments. Then after that, I'd like to discuss the reasons why formative assessment has become more relevant these days. Next, one or two things we need to bear in mind when it comes to assessment design. And finally, some practical tips on how to do formative assessment online. Okay? So sit back and relax. We're going to start discussing. I'm going to turn off my camera, right? So you can see better here as well. Okay, so people from all over the country, welcome. Right. To start with, let's take a quick look at how the ELT panorama has been designed for us here in Brazil. At the beginning of the pandemic in Brazil, not many students and teachers who worked at regular schools and private language schools were really fond of online classes. So the first step was to roll up our sleeves and start working with the tools that we had. And so many students and teachers started their attempts to consolidate online learning overnight. It took a long adaptation time, and it's important to mention that many schools still struggle, but none more than our public schools here. Also, many still haven't found the best format, still feel that this model does not work. By now, some schools have returned to face-to-face classes, some have adopted hybrid classes, but in most places, online classes continue or have just started, which is the case of some of the federal universities, for example. Since most schools are working with the online class model, in which the teachers can only see students through this very tiny window, right? And very often, the teachers have to share their screens for showing content, exercises, etc. How can we guarantee students are actually looking at what the teacher meant them to see, right? And not watching videos on YouTube or playing games online, for example. Many parents need, at the same time, to be working from home at their own devices, right, at the same time. Others must go to their workplaces or leave their kids with uncles, aunts, neighbors, grandparents, and many parents and other helpers seem not to have yet understood the necessity of guidance in this process. So how do we know our learners are actually learning? The answer to that question is assessment. And assessment is inevitable, right? Inevitable, just like, I'm sorry for the joke, but just like Thanos, the Mad Titan, right, from the Avengers films. It is impossible to conduct an instructional process without assessing, right? Well, if assessment is the answer, uh, what types of assessment are there, right? One of the ways of of classifying assessment is this. There are basically three types. Diagnostic assessment, which happens prior to our instruction process. Formative assessment, which happens throughout the instruction process. And summative assessment, which takes place at the end of the instructional process. But here, we are here for the formative assessment. Am I right? So what is it? There are many concepts of formative assessment, but because all of them are basically the same with some different words, here I mention two that I like. Formative assessment is a tool for helping to guide students' learning, as well as to provide information that teachers can use to improve their own instructional practice. And the other one, formative assessment is the use of assessments to provide feedback to teachers and learners over the course of instruction. So you can see that formative assessment is a way to gather information both on the student's learning and on the teacher's practice in order to help teachers spot their students' difficulties or weaknesses and confirm or review what has been planned by the teacher so as to better their practice. In this sense, when we go back a little bit and take a second look at this slide with the types of assessment, we can understand better the purpose of each one of them. So diagnostic assessment is assessment before learning, and we use it to understand the first picture of a class, where each student is, if this class is a single or multi-level class, right? Point where we have to focus, more or less, etc. Summative assessment is assessment of learning. It's the final picture. We understand if our students got where we meant them to get, and if not, it points the areas in which we need to pay extra attention next term. But formative assessment is assessment for learning in order to promote learning. We can even understand the preposition for as in favor of learning. It encompasses many photographs along the learning process. It's like a compass that indicates the directions of the course. It has always been important to understand where my students' learning is going. However, it has become increasingly more important, more meaningful since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. The current portrait of reality is this. Learning needs to happen at home where teachers and learners are safer from infection. Fact, right? It is more challenging. It is more challenging for teachers to grasp what is going on with their learners since there is this huge distance between them. Right? In this context, parents have to help and guide their children without any preparation. Right? Some have the luck of having their parents as teachers, so their parents are teachers, so the problem is not that big. And in this scenario, students lose motivation. They don't have the peer motivation, they are not with their friends, they don't have the teacher-student motivation, right? And they feel that they are not exactly learning very well, right? So formative assessment in this scenario offers a much better understanding of the status of the learning process by providing great input for teacher-student feedback, by helping teachers understand what is working or not and adapt to the situation. And we could even use the another name for formative assessment. We could even say informative assessment. And due to the individual and precise feedback provided by a varied number of evaluative tasks, our learners feel more engaged and consequently feel that they can own their learning, that English is for them, is for them if they roll up their sleeves and work together with the teacher towards intended results, right? People are asking where I'm here, right? I'm just here. I sometimes just ask, I just turn off the video so you can see better the whole slide, okay? So, but I'm here, guys, just here, okay? So, when we designed an evaluative activity, right, in order to assess our students, we need to bear some things in our minds, right? We need, for example, to remember to worry about the reliability of the task. This means that we must design a task that will produce similar results, no matter how many times it is carried out. For example, a student taking the same test over and over again without any feedback is likely to have the same results every time he tries it, right? Another concept that we must bear in mind is the concept of validity. A test needs to measure what it is supposed to measure. For example, if I want to test the understanding of the grammar rules and use of the passive voice, right, I need to offer opportunities for the student to show me exactly that. And I'm not going to add the preposition gap filling exercise just because there's space left on the page. But if I want to assess my learners' communicative skills, I'm going to design tasks that will promote a good show of these skills. And when we think of reliability and validity, they are two plates of a scale, right? We need to find the right balance between them in order to design a good task, evaluative task. More importantly, however, is that evaluative task must follow the concept of fairness that consists of 5 interrelated qualities. Validity, we have already mentioned that. That a test must measure what it's supposed to measure, right? Absence of bias, which means that a test cannot favor student A just because he brings me an apple sometimes, or it can favor student B because we play soccer together on the weekend, right? Access, which means that the test has to offer accessibility of the environment where the task is taken, right? Administration, or meaning that the task has to be delivered equally to all students. And social consequences, or how the results of this task will affect my learners' lives. Right? What is the outcome of this assessment? Of course, that we cannot control all aspects involved on the assessment day, but we must guarantee minimum compliance with the rules of fairness. We must guarantee that that all these rules here are applied at the maximum level, right? And especially when you're talking about online learning, right? We don't have the control of, for example, what is the environment when an assessment is taken, right? But here is a hint, right? If we pay careful attention to these three words, we will hardly ever design an unfair assessment task. Right? Purpose. What is purpose? Is why I am assessing, right? Do I want to see how my students are communicating, or do I want to know if my students are writing a good essay for the Cambridge first, for example, the exam? This why do I want to assess them? Right? Format, or how this assessment is going to be like, right? Is it going to be a formal test, a written test, or is it going to be a debate, or I'm going to assess my students through a quiz, right? And characteristics of this task. What types of exercises are they going to do? What roles are my students going to take, right? For example, if it's a debate, are they going to be a side for any given theme, or another side is going to be against? Is there going to be a judge? This kind of stuff. Well, taking everything into consideration, what kind of tasks can we design so as to guarantee that my students are learning, and if not, that I can help them somehow so that they can learn in online classes? A formative assessment can be conducted in many formats, right? Here in this slide, I just in a brainstorming, I just brainstormed some of them, right? But you can use forms, right? You can use discussion groups, you can use quizzes, you can use voice recording, they can write compositions, they can prepare a presentation, they can show pictures, you can show pictures, right, for them to speak about. Songs, role plays, they can build mind maps, or mind maps can be built collaboratively through projects, right? They can record videos and many others. When it seems that when we talk about assessment, and this is something cultural, at least here in Brazil, the most straightforward idea, right, that most teachers have when thinking about it is design a test, right? Design a test, but this is changing. Thank God, this is changing, right? Preparing a test, and the easiest way, in my opinion, to prepare a test for students to do online is using Google Forms or Microsoft Forms, right? They provide these tools. They provide fields so as you can create a different number of question types. For example, you can select if you want short or long texts, if you want multiple choice, if you want it to be selection box, etc. And you can very easily design a more formal test, for example, or just a revision questionnaire, or just questions that students need to answer during the making of a project, for example, right? So it's very useful in this sense. Discussions and debates, they are awesome ways of taking a look at how their students' speaking and writing are, right? You can select a theme, a quote, or show a photo. Then you set a task, define roles, if you feel it's relevant, and then you can use the breakout rooms and forums to promote the discussion, right? Some of our Cambridge course books provide forums in the CLMS, the Cambridge Learning Management System. Apart from these, there are many online forums, such as Kialo Edu or Now Comments. There are so many others, right? You just have to Google and you find many. Of course, that depending on your learner's level, discussions must be carefully designed, right? Using scaffolding activities so that you can provide a safe speaking and discussion environment, right? In which it will make them feel comfortable, confident, and most importantly, willing to share. Yes, scaffolding is very, very important. Quizzes are amazing tools that will provide you with feedback on your students' strengths and weaknesses concerning grammar, vocabulary, language use, right? Also, it's really fun. They just love doing it. I recommend quizzes, a very user-friendly online tool where you can design many types of quizzes. But not only quizzes, there are also lots of them, right? I cannot go talking about quizzes without mentioning Kahoot, right, which is a classic among classroom games, right? Here you can design, if you don't know, right, just you must, right? Because here you can design your own quizzes, right? You can use images, you can use videos, right? But you can also find there in Kahoot, especially, can find complete quizzes of some of the Cambridge University Press materials, and also Cambridge English Young Learners, right? So it's really worth taking a look at it, right? Especially if you work with young learners, for example. Right? Yes, Gavin says that his students always demand Kahoot. Yeah, sometimes it's difficult to control, right? Sometimes it's very difficult to control, and then you have to, well, okay, let's play a little bit, right? In order to keep the command of the classroom, right? Well, right. So quizzes, right? Quizzes is really, really nice. I love them. People, we all use WhatsApp voice messages to communicate with friends and our family, right? So yeah, why not use it to check speaking, right? You just set a task, for example, well, describe a room, right? And then you have your students record their answers and send them to you using WhatsApp or Vocaroo or any of the many choices you can find online. The CLMS and the Cambridge One, our digital platforms, they offer voice recording. They provide voice recording tools for speaking assessment, right? Just a bit of water. Another old but still really great way to check your students' grammar, vocabulary, use of English is writing. Yeah? You can always ask them to write a composition or a paragraph or lines on any text editor they have access and send these texts to you. Then you must correct, of course, write your comments and suggestions, send back to them, and they have this text for further reference or then even rewrite to improve it, right? One very maybe it is also old but very important hint is that this is a rule I created for myself. Always write something, right? Always write a comment, right? Always always send something for students to read about their text, right? Because if you just write like very good or okay or excellent, this doesn't bring robust feedback, right? So always write a comment, right? Highlight some parts of the text, comment on it, because these will give value to the task also, and you see that your students will will start writing more and stop complaining about writing, right? Which is something that's very recurrent, right? So, yeah. One, there is this fantastic tool on the slide there that was developed by Cambridge Assessment English called Write and Improve. Here, your students can write their texts and get the grades in just a few seconds because the site does that for you. They will also get feedback they will get all types of feedback, and they will be able to make changes if they want. They submit, they get their answers, and they can restart the whole process, right? It has some features which demand your subscription, right? If you are interested, but everything else is free, so it's really good. I strongly recommend. With Canva, I don't know if you know Canva, right? But I'm one of its biggest fans. With Canva, your students can create banners for presentations, for example, or posts for social media, infographics, reports, right? And you don't need to assess only the language they show, but you can assess how creatively they use the tool, how collaboratively they have worked, right? There's also Canva for Education, right, which is specially designed for online and face-to-face classroom. Why not, if you have a projector, right? So it's really nice. And you don't need a tutorial to start using. You just start using, right? After some minutes, you get the idea, right? Another teacher's old friend, right, is Padlet, a tool that allows students collaboration by creating notice or news boards, right? You can, for example, define a theme or several themes for the whole class, and have your students use the Padlet to create boards sharing news, sharing videos, songs, you name it, right? Everything related to that theme. It also has voting and liking functions, right? Teachers and all the teachers, for example, if you have a team of teachers in the school, or a team of teachers, they can give stars or grades as well, right? The students can give stars or grades, and you can involve everyone in the process, right? So it's really nice. It's something that actually I started using Padlet now with the pandemic, right? I started using it, and at first I had some restrictions, right? But it ended up being a great tool. You may also want to ask your students to draw something, right, or bring a photograph they like, show it to the class, and talk about it, right? This is old show and tell, right? And it always works very well because students, they are bringing something relevant to them or produced by them, right? Something that they treasure, perhaps, right? And you don't need to use only paper, right? You can, one of the advantages of online classes is that learners are at home and can show a wide variety of things, like their pets, toys, clothes, gadgets, board games, you name it, right? Some of the students, they can use their creativity, and they put up a great show, right? It's very good. It's simple. It doesn't require much investment, right? No investment at all, right? And they are talking about something they treasure, and you can even see their eyes glistening, right? More pictures, right? You don't need to use, you don't need only to ask your students to use pictures or to show pictures, right? But you can also show pictures to the class and ask them to describe what they can see, for example, right? Or play spot the errors or compare and contrast, etc. Right? One of these kind of activities that I find really, really good fun is where's Wally or where's Waldo in the United States, right? You use one of those pictures and you can ask your students to, of course, tell where Wally is, right? And but you know, better than telling you, I'm going to ask you to play. Let's, shall we? I'm going to show you a picture, and you have to try to find Wally, right? And then you write the answer in the chat box. Okay. Please, you're going to have to use prepositions, obviously, right? Or prepositional phrases, of course, of location in the answer. So let's see who will find Wally first. I'm going to give you some seconds, right? If nobody finds Wally, I'll just give the answer. Okay. So here we go. So where is Wally? So if you, Carlos Eduardo Santos, if you found him, write where. Try to indicate where he is. No, he's not on the boat. Not in on the submarine. Okay, guys, you didn't find. Of course, and of course, when you were watching a presentation, the screen gets even smaller, right? So here he is, right? Can you see him? Yeah, behind the lion, somebody found, right? Yes, he's there at the top. If you ask your students, for example, if you're working with, there is a circle right here, right, at the top left corner, behind the lion, right, and the samurai, next to a man in a gray tux, in front of someone wearing a gigantic red animal costume, I think, right? So isn't it fun? If you're working with preposition or prepositional phrases, this is really, really nice, okay? Let's try again, okay? Let's try again. This one is even more difficult, right? So here, where's Wally? The characters are too small, right? It's fun but distracting. Who says that? No, somebody says the chat has gone over. It is fun, but it is distracting in a sense of you break the flow of the class. Yeah, maybe. But it also adds fun to the classroom, right? It adds collaboration. Students usually love playing this. Of course that this picture is too like the characters are too small and you can't see, even because your screen is now smaller. But I'm going to show you here. The purpose is here is not really finding Wally. Wally is there at the right top center of the picture, right? And he is asking for help. There is a balloon written help. There is Superman and Supergirl are watching him, right, from outside the boxes, right? Just watching, and poor helpless Wally is asking for help. But I want you to just now see the potential of this picture, right? It is a Comic-Con. There are characters for all ages, because if you look, you can find the Avengers, you can find stormtroopers, Darth Vader. There is a Megazord here, whatever. there are characters for all ages, really. Dragon Ball, and this is going to, and your students are definitely going to relate, if not all, with some parts of this picture, right? So what can you do apart from working with prepositions? They are, for example, your students can focus on a part of the story, and then you can ask them to write about it or tell what's going on there, right? So so it's really good fun, right? Okay, moving on. You can always use audios, for example, from course books to design a listening test, right? To assess their listening. But you can also use music to add another pleasant moment in the classroom, right? And usually in the pleasant, when they're having fun, is that you can assess their real communicative skills, right? You can find loads of music worksheets online. I think I don't need to tell you this. And you can always make your own worksheets. But there is this website that I've been using for a year or two, maybe more, which brings, it's called Lyrics Training, right? And you select the song. There are great wide variety of songs there, and the level of difficulty, right? And it plays the music video and the lyrics with gaps for you or your students to fill in. There's also, so it's really nice. And there's also a karaoke feature to sing along if you want, right? It's really great. Diana is asking, Alexandre, I really don't know. Can we attach it on Google Class to check your students' performance? Well, yeah, Google Classroom, you mean, I think, is something that they can, you use Google Class for asynchronous classes, right? So for asynchronous classes, you can't use something for like lyrics training, for example. But you can use in synchronous classes, right? Lyricstraining.com, yes. And you can use it in the synchronous classes. And other things, some other of these features, for example, the Where's Wally picture, you can use in the synchronous class, and then put there on Google Classroom so they can find something they'd like to write about, for example, or prepare to speak about in the next classroom, in the next class, right? So, and now it depends on your, I don't know which tools you're using, right? But then you have to adapt, right? You know better than me how to make these things work, right? Right, so lyrics training, really good. Really highly recommend. Another all-times favorite, right? Role plays. I'm a big fan of role plays, right? Especially for lower levels, but it also works with more advanced levels, right? So if you I don't know, if you have your students role play a dialogue, right? You can check pronunciation, intonation. You can ask your students to substitute words or phrases in the dialogues, allow more autonomy, right? Collaboration. Just a minute. Where do I find a picture of Wally? Google. You just Google it. Where's Wally? And you find, and then you go to in the images tab, right? At Pinterest as well, right? So you can find many pictures. I was talking about the role plays, right? So use the role plays. Ask your students to substitute words. For example, the words the words family that you're using right? And at the moment of your course, right? It allows more autonomy. They can be creative, right? This website here, ESL speaking, uh, will find loads of model role plays and many other interesting speaking activities, right? So also another one that I recommend. Uh, a great way to ask your students to show what they have learned about, like, for example, a grammar topic, vocabulary family, or a theme you were working on in class is mind maps. Because apart from asking them to create something to show what they know about language, it's a great way of studying, right, in organizing ideas and concepts, right? You might ask your students to draw one. You can draw a mind map, no problem, on a piece of paper. Or you can use MindMeister, which is this website I'm showing, to create your own mind maps. They can also share their mind maps in this website with colleagues. The colleagues can collaborate, complementing ideas, right? It's a great tool to visualize your thoughts and communicate them, right? It also encourages free flow of ideas, right? And then this makes an ideal format for brainstorming, right? And for example, in creating problem-solving sessions, right? So this is one, right? MindMeister is one website. There are other mind map websites online. Another, involving your students in projects, right? Why not? Why not involve them in projects online? Right? It's a great way to assess them. Just returning a little bit to the mind maps, Ricardo says, I was going to say Mentimeter. Yes, Mentimeter is also great. I love it as well. You can produce also word clouds, for example, in polls, right? You can use it. These webinars, people are asking. This webinar is being recorded, and it's going to be on Disal website, page on YouTube, right? So you just go to YouTube and find Disal page, and you will find this webinar. Okay. So back to projects, right? For example, projects are great because you can promote collaborative work. Your students learn to learn, which is great. They can learn problem solving, critical thinking, right? You can design your projects, but you can ask your students to design projects together, right? Once I ran a project, but this, like, of course, not online, like building a spices and herbs kitchen garden, right? And they really engaged, right? You can do this online, I was thinking as well, right? You can ask your students to grow their own spice, right, at home, right? Or build a home composter, right? Maybe even a small one, right? There are many examples of projects, right? This one on the slide is an example of a culture project developed in Unit 7 of our new secondary course called Own It, right? This is level 1. This is about how to design a scrapbook with photos of trips, events, etc. You can even you can put your students on a project, for example, like these, and they can present to the classroom right online. So it's they have to research for words, they have to look up words and structures, right? So it's a great way to evaluate your students' communicative skills and life skills as well, right? These things I mentioned, collaborative work, learn to learn, problem solving, critical thinking, they're all life skills, right? And if you wish to know more about life skills, I really strongly recommend taking a look at Cambridge Life Competencies Framework. if you want to go, I'm going to write on the chat the online address, okay? It's cambridge.org dash Cambridge Life Competence Framework. Okay, take a look at this website and read and learn how to develop life skills with your students while they are also learning English. This is going to be very important for your students, right? Right, continuing. I said I was going to talk for 40 minutes. I think it's a little bit more, but here we go. Next one. Also, your students can produce videos of a wide variety of types, right? So to show their language, yeah. They can record a role play, for example, or a short movie or a news program. You can put them in the role of the anchor, of the reporter, of the weather guy, right? They can record a chat show, right? They can record a reality show, a fake one, of course, a soap opera, you name it. You're probably even more creative than I am. So you can have a lot of fun and also assess their languages, right? Their language. You can also assess their listening comprehension, for example, using, like in this slide, using a video provided by a course book, right? There are many. Here's an example of one of the videos in Evolve, our Cambridge new adult course, right? The videos come with free activities while you can do activities while they are watching, and there are also post activities, and you can even easily select one of them in assessment. Why not, right? Yeah, remember that we also have to put down this culture we have in Brazil that students do the students have to do tests for the grade or for the mark. No, we have to conduct assessment because this helps them learn, right? So this is a way, right? They are watching a video, they are writing, they are answering some questions, some exercises while they watch, before they watch. Before they watch is very important. Every activity needs a pre-activity, right? To prepare, to connect neurons, right? Before, to activate previous knowledge, right? So this is amazing, right? Of course, right? Needless to say, you can always count on our blog, World of Better Learning. There you can find thousands of activities, experiences, resources, insights, ideas, lots of it, yeah? So please go there, cambridge.org/wobble, right? Well, before we finish here, I'd like to show two images which will help us remember what was said during this webinar. First of all, remember that formative assessment is your main tool to provide valuable information on your students' learning and on your practice. And if you're successful in engaging in this process with your class or with your students, your feedback will greatly improve. It will be much more than something like, yeah, good job, or I think you need improvement. It will point out areas for real improvements and make your students much more engaged, right? You see that they're going to take ownership of their learning. They are going to say, yes, with the help of my teacher, I can conduct my own learning, right? Of course, that every student needs a teacher. Teachers are important. They are the pointers. Well, I think this is what you have to do. Maybe this is a better action than that one, right? but it will sure help your students to take ownership of their learning. Another thing is that remember that assessment must be fair for everyone in a class. It is, I know that sometimes it's challenging, like when you have to design one assessment, one evaluative task that would fit all your students. But we have to remember to consider what I said before. You have to design something that will really measure what they need to, what we need to measure, right? So think of your purpose. You need something that is absent of bias, of your personal bias, okay? That everyone can access, right? That is delivered to everyone equally, as much as possible, right? And that will promote learning as a consequence, rather than raise the barriers of a grade, of a mark, right? So here, this picture is fantastic, right? That's we know instantly why the monkey is smiling and the others are not, right? Yeah, we cannot demand an elephant to climb a tree, right? Or a penguin or a fish, right? We have to design things that everybody can do, and not try to, design things just to see them struggle, right? Yeah. The source of the picture, Silvana, my God, online, Google, right? I think actually it's a very famous picture, right? It's a very famous picture. If you go to Google and write assessment, and go to the images tab, you probably see this picture, right? And people, please remember that we are here, we are together, right? Maybe we cannot be physically together, but we have the same drive, right? We want to make better future together, right? We want to build brighter futures together, right? So you can always count on us here at Cambridge, right? You can contact us via website, email, right? We'll try to solve your problems if we can, right? And support support you with what we have. Okay. Any questions, people? Do we have time for questions? We have some minutes. Please now, if you have questions, you can write on the chat. I will try to spot them. Right? My contact is here, right? My email. Please feel free to email me asking for more tips, right? Or discussing, right? Some of your points, different points you have. I would love to receive your feedback as well, right? How can teachers assess? How can teachers, Gabriela? It was Valeria actually. How can teachers assess students' answers on Padlet self-check links? Well, the assessment criteria, you have to select your own, right? I'm not going to pretend that I know your students or I know your reality, right? So what you really have to remember is that you should design something fair, right? Designing your when you are designing a task, you have to remember to clearly define on what points you're going to assess, right? Do you have any ideas for lead-in or follow-up activities when using lyrics training? Well, you can. This is Gabriela Morali. Well, you can, for example, bring something about the artist, right, or the band or the singer, right? You can talk about their lives, right, a little bit, if they have something important to contribute, okay? So this is something that you can use before. A follow-up, uh, discuss the lyrics, maybe, right? There are many songs that bring very important messages, uh, and that's even more important than, for example, focusing on the discrete item there that you want to check. For example, the s in the third person singular of present perfect, right? It's much more important to develop the communicative skills and have them discuss or write a personal opinion about what the lyrics are saying, right? Um, well, I'm afraid we now still have time for one question. One question. Let me find one. Yes, my presentation will be available uh, as a video on Disal YouTube channel. Okay, Isabella Silveira is asking. All right. One last question from Andrea Machado. In your opinion, what is the kind of assessment more interesting for this moment after or during the pandemic? All types of assessment are important. I would say that it is very important. I didn't used to do this, okay, but I started doing in the last 4 or 5 years. Try to do a diagnostic assessment, right? Conduct. It doesn't it never needs to be a formal test, for example, in my opinion, but design something that they can show their language at the beginning of the course, right? The very beginning, so you have a clear picture of what you are going to deal with during the semester or the year. Okay, so it's important to diagnose their skills and their communication skills at the beginning of the course. It is absolutely essential to take different pictures at different times throughout the course, right? In order to see if, yeah, okay, they are getting there, or no, they are not. What do I need to change, right? It's very important for you to have this feedback. And also summative assessment, which is the end, right? To see if your students got where you wanted them to be, or if not, who, all of them or some of them. What can I do to help them now or next semester or next term, right? So it's very important. All kinds of assessment is good. And in fact, a good teacher assesses all the time, right? You don't need to wait for the day of the assessment, right? But any activity you do, you can assess. It means check, right? Using your teaching background, right? Your experience, how your students are performing at any moment of the class, right? Well, I am afraid we don't have much. By the way, we don't have any time, actually, right? And I just have to say thank you. Thank you for joining me in this session. I hope you were very successful with your attempts online. Okay, if you need anything else, if you need insights, ideas, I can't guarantee I'm going to give you these ideas, but we can discuss about it. You just email me. I'll be more than glad to help you. Okay, take care. See you. Right. Bye bye.